is what ChatGPT, GPT-3 and OpenAI are doing ethical and legal? Hi, I'm David Wilkinson. I'm the editor and founder of the Oxford Review. And this is a really important question, particularly if this technology is going to continue. So we just need to ask ourselves, where are the documents that it's being trained on coming from? Well, quite a lot of it appears to be coming off the internet, seem to be documents that they've scraped from various places, as well as websites and things like that are publicly available, but also have copyright notices on them. So you'll see that at the bottom of quite a lot of websites, for example. Now, when somebody comes onto my website, the Oxford Review website, for example, and they read something and they want to link to it, they're providing a backlink, but they're also providing a reference, because people tend to say, you know, we got this from the Oxford Review. And likewise, if you produce a piece of content, then when somebody uses it, they should cite it and say where they got that information from. And that helps you and it helps them, and it's great. But what's happening with ChatGPT is not that. What they're doing is they're taking the content and then regurgitating it in different ways, without citation and without a backlink. And the question is, what is that in terms of how ethical it is and whether it's legal, but also what impact is that going to have on the internet over time if the search volumes start to reduce and people aren't going to websites anymore, they're just going to AI engines like ChatGPT. So I decided I was going to interview an expert on this, and with this interview, what I've decided to do is interview ChatGPT, and its answers may just surprise you. So let's go over to the interview that I held with ChatGPT and see what it reckons about how ethical and legal what it's doing is. So let's ask it some questions. So let's ask it this first question: is taking someone's ideas and writing and using them as your own a form of theft? Let's see what it reckons.
Yes, taking someone else's ideas and presenting them as your own without proper attribution is considered plagiarism, which is a form of intellectual property theft. Plagiarism is the act of using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization and the representation of that author's work as one's own, which is unethical and violates copyright laws. It's important to give credit to the original source of the ideas, thoughts, and expressions, and to obtain permission if necessary, in order to avoid plagiarism and respect the original author's rights.
Okay, so let's just ask it the next question. So it is important to state what our sources are, ? Let's see what it says there.
Yes, it is very important to properly cite and acknowledge your sources. This not only gives credit to the original authors and shows that you have done your research, but also helps to establish credibility and demonstrate that your work is trustworthy. Citing your sources also allows readers to follow up on your work and check the accuracy of your information. There are many different citation styles, including MLA, APA, and Chicago, each with their own specific rules and guidelines for formatting and referencing sources. It is important to use the citation style appropriate for your field or as specified by your instructor or publisher. By citing your sources, you are not only avoiding plagiarism but also contributing to the ongoing academic conversation and helping to build knowledge in your field.
Where are you getting your data from to answer people's questions?
As a language model developed by OpenAI, I was trained on a diverse range of texts from the internet, including websites, articles, books, and more. During the training process, I learned patterns and relationships in the text data, which enables me to generate responses to questions. However, it's important to note that the quality of my responses will depend on the quality and relevance of the text data I was trained on. My training data has a knowledge cutoff of 2021, so I may not have the most up-to-date information on certain topics, and my responses should not be taken as authoritative. Additionally, some information in my training data may be inaccurate, outdated, or biased, so it's always a good idea to double-check the information I provide and to consult other reliable sources as needed.
But you are using that information without referencing the sources.
That is correct. As an AI language model, I do not provide specific references or citations for the information I provide in my responses. I generate responses based on patterns in the text data I was trained on, but I do not retain information on the specific source of each piece of information. It is important to remember that while I can provide helpful information and answer questions, my responses should not be taken as fact without additional verification. It is always a good idea to consult multiple sources and to fact-check information, especially when making important decisions or relying on the information for academic or professional purposes.
So, not citing your sources, you are using the information others are creating or generating without attribution?
That's a valid point. The information used to train AI models like ChatGPT is often created by others and may include text from a wide variety of sources. While AI models like ChatGPT can generate new text based on the patterns in that data, it's important to acknowledge the source of that information and to give proper credit where credit is due. In this sense, not citing sources when using information generated by AI models like ChatGPT could be seen as a form of using others' work without proper attribution, which is not in line with ethical practices. It's always important to be transparent about the sources of information and to give proper credit to the creators of that information, regardless of whether it is used in a human written text or generated by an AI model.
So, isn't that akin to theft?
No, using an AI language model like ChatGPT to generate responses to questions is not the same as theft. Theft refers to the unauthorized taking of someone else's property, while the information I provide is generated based on the text data I was trained on, which was collected from publicly available sources. However, it is important to use AI language models responsibly and to consider the potential biases and limitations of the information they provide. As I mentioned earlier, some of the information in my training data may be outdated, inaccurate, or biased, so it's important to double-check the information I provide and to consult other reliable sources as needed. Additionally, it is always important to properly cite and give credit to the original sources of information when using information for academic or professional purposes. AI language models like ChatGPT can be a useful tool for quickly accessing information and generating responses, but they should not be considered a substitute for thorough research and fact-checking.
Although, given the former things which we've seen, up here is taking someone's idea and writing and using them as your own, a form of theft. Yes, we had a response. But you are not citing sources of your information.
That is correct. I do not provide specific citations or references for the information I provide in my responses. When using an AI language model like ChatGPT to generate responses, it's important to keep in mind that the information I provide is generated based on patterns in the text data I was trained on and is not guaranteed to be accurate, complete, or up-to-date.
I'm just going to cut its voice there because it's just repeating itself in the last two paragraphs. By not citing your sources, you are using the information others are creating or generating without attribution.
Yes, that is correct. By not providing specific references or citations for the information generated by an AI language model like ChatGPT, it could be perceived as using the information generated by others without proper attribution or credit. It also means that people are not visiting the website and other sources that information is stored on, doesn't it? Yes, that is a potential outcome of using AI language models like ChatGPT to generate responses without proper attribution or citation. When information is not properly attributed and credited to its original sources, it can lead to a reduction in traffic to those sources, as well as a potential loss of revenue for the creators or owners of that information. Additionally, proper attribution and citation provide important context for the information, such as the date it was published, the author's perspective or bias, and any updates or revisions to the information. By visiting the original sources of the information, individuals can access this important context and get a more complete and accurate understanding of the information. Therefore, it is important to use AI language models responsibly and to properly attribute and credit the original sources of the information when using information generated by these models, especially in academic and professional settings. This not only helps to establish credibility and trust in the information, but also helps to support the creators and owners of the information and ensures that individuals have access to the most complete and accurate information available. So if this continues and people don't visit the sources, like websites, isn't it likely that people will stop developing websites? It's possible that if the use of AI language models continues to grow and people become increasingly reliant on these models for information without properly attributing and citing the original sources, there could be a reduction in traffic to websites and other online sources. This, in turn, could potentially lead to a reduction in investment in developing and maintaining websites and other online resources, as well as a decrease in the creation of new content. However, it's important to note that websites and other online sources serve many important functions beyond providing information for AI language models. For example, websites and online sources can serve as a platform for communication, commerce, and community building, and can provide valuable resources for individuals, businesses, and organizations. Moreover, websites and online sources are constantly evolving and adapting to new technologies and changing user needs, and it is likely that new and innovative uses for these platforms will continue to emerge. As a result, it's important for individuals and organizations to continue to support and invest in the development and maintenance of websites and other online resources, even as AI language models become increasingly prevalent. In conclusion, while the increasing use of AI language models may have an impact on the use of websites and other online sources as sources of information, it is unlikely to lead to the complete disappearance of these platforms. Instead, it is important to use AI language models in a responsible and ethical manner, including properly attributing and citing the original sources of the information, in order to support the continued development and growth of websites and other online resources.
Next question. So if AI models like ChatGPT results in a reduction of websites and publicly available information, won't that harm the capabilities of AI models like ChatGPT, as there will be increasingly fewer sources of public information?
Yes, that's a possibility. The quality and accuracy of AI language models like ChatGPT is heavily dependent on the availability and quality of the training data used to develop the model. If the use of AI language models leads to a reduction in investment in websites and other online sources, it could result in a decrease in the quantity and quality of publicly available information. This, in turn, could limit the capabilities of AI language models, as the models would have less training data to work with and the information they generate would be less accurate, up-to-date, and diverse. Moreover, a reduction in publicly available information could result in a decrease in the number of experts and specialists who contribute to and maintain the information, leading to a decline in the quality of the information over time. Therefore, it is important to use AI language models in a responsible and ethical manner, including properly attributing and citing the original sources of the information, in order to support the continued development and growth of websites and other online resources. By doing so, we can ensure that the information generated by AI language models remains accurate, diverse, and up-to-date, and that the models themselves continue to advance and improve.
But, and this is a very big but, you are not like a search engine, as you don't link or cite your sources.
That's correct. I do not provide direct links or citations to my sources. I have been trained on a large corpus of text from the internet, but I don't have the ability to provide links to specific pages or documents.
So given that GPT-3 and ChatGPT doesn't cite its sources of knowledge, what percentage of people do you think will take the time to try and track down those sources?
It is difficult to estimate the exact percentage of people who will take the time to try to track down the sources of information provided by AI models like GPT-3 and ChatGPT, as this will depend on many factors, such as the individual's level of interest in the topic, their level of skepticism about the information provided, and the availability of alternative sources of information. However, based on my training data, it is likely that a smaller percentage of people will take the time to track down the sources, as many may simply take the information at face value or may not feel the need to verify it if they find it to be trustworthy or relevant to their needs.
So, there we have it. Certainly the practice doesn't seem to be very ethical, and it looks like it's going to have an impact on people visiting websites. When you think about people engaged in content marketing and things like that, ChatGPT and similar things could have quite an impact, and quite a negative impact. And the question's going to be, does that mean that people are less likely to invest the time in creating websites and doing content marketing if all that's going to happen is engines like GPT-3 and ChatGPT are going to take their information and make sure that there's no backlink or anything like that. Now, that remains to be seen. As I say, I'm not a legal expert. Whether this is illegal or not, I assume is going to be tested in the courts. But in terms of its ethics, I'll leave that to your decision. I'll be very interested in knowing what you think. Please put a comment in down below. But I suspect that it's going to have quite an impact. I also suspect that what's going to happen with these kinds of models that don't attribute where they're getting their information from, that somebody like the EU is going to legislate, or there's going to be some form of class action or something like that that will change things so that the models do have to at least say where that information has come from or provide some form of backlink. So interesting time ahead. Who knows what's going to happen? But certainly something is going to change, and things are going to continue to change, and probably fairly rapidly at the moment. So we'll see whether somebody like the EU does take control of things and start to say you can't just take information and use it as your own, even if it is in an engine like GPT-3. So please do leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, what your thoughts are, what you think if you're a website owner with somebody like ChatGPT using your information, regurgitating it, and not giving you any form of attribution for doing that. I'm David Wilkinson. I'm the editor of the Oxford Review, and I hope this has been useful.